Future-Proof is sponsored by Learn Smart Academy, online revision courses for GCSE and A-Level. All your revision in one place, organised for you, interactive and game-changing. Hello and thank you for joining me, Sarah Hopwood, during this series of Future-Proof, when I'm asking or I'm sharing how to do things. And in today's programme, I want to look at the art of delegation. Quite crucial in getting business successful and up and running. And it also is very, very important about protecting your business. If anybody is taken ill or something happens, that if people are familiar with delegation, if they are familiar with shadowing, piggybacking, and knowledge sharing within the business, then it will really protect you when the unexpected happens. Some people will automatically delegate as they go into business or as they run their business, and often that comes from an innate desire to enable other people, to invest in other people, to be caught up in legacy and contribution, in growth and learning. If you're familiar with Tony Robbins' 6 basic human needs, and Tony argues that if you get caught up in legacy and contribution and growth and learning, then you will get control and diversity and teamwork, love and belonging. You will get all of that as a result anyway. So I just encourage you, if you think with an enabling mind, and I think that will really protect you moving forward, it keep the pressure off of you, but also it's good for retaining staff because they feel valued. If you're not coaching and training them and enabling them, then somebody else could be knocking on their door and they will do it instead of you. So it's very proactive. There's a proactive business case for doing it, but there's also a reactive business case for doing it, and that is that if you aren't naturally wired to be an enabler and empower other people, then there could come a time when you are forced to delegate through crisis, or there could be, as a result of crisis, you are taken down for something and you are really anxious and worried and regretful that you haven't actually trained people up or invested in them. And one very good way of doing it is around delegation. If you just tell somebody how to do something, the likelihood of them retaining it for any length of time is only around 25%. If you show them and if you tell them and you show them, and even if you just let them have a bit of a go but not immerse themselves in it, the best you'll ever get is anything between 50 and 75% learning. The way that learning is embedded into somebody and that you can feel a sense of letting go and trust in that, the only way is if they actually get on and do it and then teach it to other people as well. So what you're doing is creating an investment culture within your business where delegation is something that, if you like, arguably happens every single day. And so whilst you're enabling somebody and they are grasping it and learning it, that they will then be following that code of practice further down the line. And you can really build a busy, proactive, forward-thinking business that's going in the direction that you want it to go into. The only little caveat I'd put in there is, of course, make sure somebody doesn't get so enthusiastic about delegating and teaching, what have you, that they don't start running and doing that before they're, if you like, qualified to do it. So, we need to just be careful that that sort of forward teaching where people are doing it further down the line, that it doesn't happen too early, because of course then they end up teaching the wrong things, and it's very difficult, or it's more challenging, to unlearn something before you then learn the new way of doing it. And that's quite important. The unlearning in that circle is very, very important. Sometimes we just keep trying to put new information on top of some bad practice and bad learning, and I suggest that we actually unpack some of that old stuff or the stuff that isn't working anymore, understand why it isn't, and then teach in the new learning, and that can really help. And that is part of the delegation process, particularly for long-term member of staffs or people who have come in from years I'm thinking of the insurance industry, for example, years with one business, and then they might be taking some patterns of behaviour that don't actually fit with your core values of your business, for example. And that doesn't have to be bad practice or what have you, it's just not the way we do it around here. And if I don't I've got to be careful of rambling, but that also endorses a very good case for taking on apprentices so that you can train them in the way that you want things done. You don't have to do the unlearning, and they can hit the road running if you've actually covered that recruitment process as well as you should. So, what is the business case for delegation? So, this is being proactive, I think, in wanting to enable other people. But I think this graph also shows a case to avoid a crisis as well of delegation, because you've got to protect not just the culture of the business, but obviously reputation and other things. So, if you teach people how to do it properly, enable them and shadow them and what have you, then you know that they will maintain your standards within that business. But looking at this, I'm just thinking the overall business case is every decision that you make about what job is sitting on your table is how much is it keeping you in the business and stopping you from working on the business, how much is it drawing on your profits. Are you doing a job where your fees, your fee structure is high, and but also the invoicing on the job that you're doing is not, if you like, compatible, I'm thinking of the right word, with the fees that you are charging. In other words, is there a job that you are doing that you shouldn't be doing, where you can get a more junior member of staff who is not on the same, if you like, salary as you, who can be trained to do the job, and then obviously that can have a massive impact on your profits. But also we've got to think of the values of the business. This isn't misusing staff at all. This is enabling them so they can climb the ladder and they can work their way up to higher billing, higher fee structures and higher wages and all the rest of it. So you are still enabling, but it is the business case to make sure that you have as higher profits as possible and your job is done to the highest level as possible, the job that people are obviously paying you to do. So you need to look at the margins and your growth and the way that they affect your growth and profits. So that's looking at your rates of pay, the utilisation of the resources available to you, and also where can you get leverage here as well. And that is basically just showing that in this graph. So effectiveness. If you are managing any people, it is your job to develop those people and to pass tasks down to the cheapest level where it can be done most effectively. And the thing I want to put in here too is you don't just delegate things that you don't like. You should be picking out things that you really enjoy doing, that you remember when you were learning, that was the task that you look forward to, that you didn't dread, if you like, and you should be delegating those as well. Also note that tasks not necessarily the whole thing. So later on I'll be talking about a worksheet where you can actually divide the task up into the actions associated with it. So what you can do is say the overall task, let's say, is to go and do the accounts for somebody. I'm going to delegate this aspect of it to you, and once you get to that area, once you've completed it, that's when you report back to me. That's when I sign it off or somebody else does sign it off. So you put in doorstops, if you like, you put in protection to make sure that nothing goes out that is an overall error. So here we're saying call it tasks, not necessarily, if you like, the job as a whole, and that will help protect you, but it also gives people autonomy within that task. But it's all about leverage, and it's all about we've got here producers versus managers, and what we mean there is it's coming up with a result, and then you've got a manager who might be overseeing it. So this is the person who's doing the task, who then comes in. If you've heard about Covey's completed work, where somebody can come in and say, right, I've produced what you wanted, here you go, and kind of drops it on the table. And Covey talks about completed work where the manager doesn't touch it and says to the producer, are you pleased with the work that you've done? Are you happy with it? Are there any errors in it? And some people might say, yeah, well, there might be a little bit, but I've kind of done my best. And the manager doesn't touch it and say, well, why don't you go away and do it and bring it to me when you are very, very happy with it? And what it does is it tightens up the nuts and bolts of getting things right first time. It gives pride in the person producing that work, and also trust for the manager to feel that he's not going to have a load of work to do afterwards. The key thing is don't undermine the people producing the work by just nitpicking and finding things that really knocks their confidence, where they walk away and go, why should I bother? You're only going to unpick it anyway. We'll carry on with this after the break.